lot of composers have a sort of love-hate relationship with Brahms. I'm thinking of Tchaikovsky, Britten, Wagner, even at times Thomas Adès. They've somehow loved to loathe him.
Yeah.
What do you think it is that Brahms provokes in composers?
Well, I think it's kind of odd, really. I suppose they think that he's held back and he doesn't fully express their romanticism, which is quite clearly in the music. But I would say that, I mean, what they ignore maybe, or simultaneously acknowledge, is the amazing craft and the kind of completeness of musical form, which in many ways is what a lot of 20th century music is all about, and modern art and all sorts of things. It's about the elegance and beauty of simple and clear forms, which is kind of post-expressionist or post what we would say Wagner, post-Wagner, absolutely. And I suppose the interesting thing is that all of those composers, I mean particularly Britten and Wagner, were pretty much only opera composers, which is exactly not what Brahms was. He never wrote an opera in his life. He didn't really even write a symphonic poem. He steered very clear of music which had any kind of non-musical narrative in it. So I think when you come to Brahms, it's just all about music for the sake of music, or absolute music.
And what do you most admire in his output? I mean, what?
Well, as a composer myself, I would say exactly that, really, that he really flies the flag for a concentration on technical craft and an absolute kind of rigorousness and completeness as an artist. And I think that that's something which really makes music, in whatever style or mode of expression, it really makes music hang together, and it really makes the canvas complete, as it were. And I think that's a great lesson to learn as a composer, that you really need to have some kind of completeness and through thinking in your work.
But while you're talking about the craft and the completeness and the beauty of the actual structures that he created, I mean, he's also a composer that musicians really love to play, and I'm sure you know that from your musicians at Endymion. Why do you think it is they love to program? They love a program that has Brahms in it. Well,
I think for two reasons. The first is that it is terribly romantic, actually. And you can really let rip as a player and indulge yourself. And the other reason that you can do that is because I think he was a great instrumental writer. I mean, he was a very pianistic composer and wrote a lot for piano. He's a fantastic string writer and wrote quite a few works for clarinet as well. And I think because it's so well written for the instruments, coupled with music that you can really kind of pour everything out with. It's just fantastic to play. And also, what's interesting about his work, I think, as opposed to, say, earlier music, maybe Mozart and possibly Beethoven even, is that in a lot of the chamber music, the parts have very equal weight, and the focus is pulled away from the first violin, for example. So in the string quintet, I mean, everybody is so finely interwoven with each other and gets to play a kind of equal role. So everybody gets their moment, which I think makes it much more enjoyable if you're a second violinist, for example, than playing some earlier classical music.
You've also got the clarinet trio and the clarinet quintet. What's special about the way that he uses clarinet with strings and with piano?
I would say that, yeah, I mean, actually the way that he uses it with strings, I would say maybe slightly different to the way with piano, because I think, I mean, in the clarinet quintet, the clarinet very much kind of sometimes is a soloist and sometimes is a member of the ensemble, because the clarinet has that kind of ability to sound-wise blend well with string instruments, but also stand out when they want to. But obviously with a piano, that's different. So I'd say the clarinet trio and the horn trio are more modelled on a kind of piano trio type form, and particularly the horn trio, which is in 4 movements, and very much has that kind of weighty feel of a piano trio.
Yes.
And actually, I think, you know, there's an arrangement where the horn is played by cello anyway, which make it a piano trio.
Yes, so. Yes. And how does, I mean, obviously the horn is allowed to shine very much in that piece.
Absolutely. I mean, it would be, and these days it's played on a modern horn, which makes it much easier to play. Not easy at all by any stretch, no. But much easier than playing it on an older horn. And yeah, I mean, that piece is kind of a staple repertoire for any horn player. I mean, it's, and pretty much set up that form of horn trios, and we've had later tribute pieces which use that as a model, like Ligeti's horn trio, which we often perform with the Brahms as well. So I think that's a very important piece in terms of looking at Brahms's repertoire. So it's particularly important to go into a King's Place overview of Brahms's music.
Absolutely.